in the book called Homegrown about the Oklahoma City bombing, I drew, I thought, an ideological line of kinship between McVeigh's right-wing extremism and what we saw with, the thing that motivated that motivated a lot of the people on January 6th. And the themes that recur are the American Revolution, the idea that we are fighting back against tyranny, and the other thing in terms of issues is guns, is the idea that any government that threatens to take your guns away, you are justified to do anything in response. And as I sort of look at the right wing in the United States these days, the gun motivation is so strong and so pervasive and carries forward. I think it is more than abortion, more than anything else, sort of the defining issue of the right wing today.
But do you think that was animating people on January 6th as much as it is just we're on Trump's side, we think that he won, and we think that everyone's lying to us?
100%. I do think
guns above
guns.
that.
Well, because Trump was a symbol of that, a metaphor for that. And if you listen to what Trump says when he endorses a candidate, and he often endorses candidates he clearly knows nothing about, he'll say, strong on vets, strong on the Second Amendment. That is the indispensable issue, because a lot of these people are veterans as well. And I totally believe that the gun issue is paramount. Now, he, of course, as an individual, has become a symbol, and as you say, support for him is a big litmus test. But if you look behind it at all, I think it's heavily guns.
Does it shake your case a bit, or I don't know how you dealt with this in the book, that nobody was actually armed with a gun on that day? There were people that had guns in Virginia.
Staged in Virginia, yeah.
Staged in hotel rooms and things, but didn't show up that day with guns. I mean, is that...
No, I don't. Well, and remember, they were told that there were going to be metal detectors at the Ellipse, which I believe there were. And remember, there are these quotes from Trump saying, "Well, we don't need metal detectors because they're not after me." So they knew that they couldn't get through the ones who went to the rally first at the Ellipse and then went to the Capitol. But I have no doubt that if you just ask them why they cared so much about Trump and why it was so important to beat Joe Biden, it was because Biden was going to take their guns away.
I wonder, though, about the fact that we've seen so much more violence that is ideologically motivated. It has cast a pretty long shadow over our politics, and it's coming from the left and the right. We've had an assassination attempt on the president. We've seen plenty of other things. And even before January 6th, you had the pandemonium of 2020 and the summer of 2020. And it's always seemed far more probable and, from my standpoint, reasonable to interpret January 6th through the same lens that I interpret what's going on with the protests and the autonomous zones that popped up in 2020. We just have severe dysfunction in our politics. Oftentimes, people are turning to violence.
Yeah, one of the things I spent a good deal of time researching in the period leading up to my book on Oklahoma City was, does the violence come from the left or the right? And at that time, it was something like 75% from the right.
So that's mid 90s we're talking about.
Into 2022,
okay.
Including January 6th. Since January 6th, since Trump, since Biden and Trump, there has been an evening out of it. There has been more left-wing violence. I don't pretend to understand exactly why, except, I guess, hatred of Trump. You also have these people who are enraged online in a sort of really incoherent ideological form. I mean, and this is something I don't pretend to know a lot about, but there is this online world, a lot of and this gets back to your point about about the Nazis, that people talk about the Nazis online, like the guy is the person who apparently killed Charlie Kirk, the guy who took the shot at Trump. They were radicalized online, but in a way that I think was ideologically completely incoherent, but made them very angry. And I think that's something that's gone on that's different from the left-right that historically we associate with.
Is there a bit of a horseshoe thing? Because, I mean, when you're talking about Timothy McVeigh, I mean, who was his final pen pal was Gore Vidal.
Yeah, but that was just craziness.
But he comes out, and I think it was with CNN, actually.
No, it was Vanity Fair. He wrote a piece.
No,
of
but McVeigh, I think, might have been an interview with CNN. Correct me if I'm wrong with this, but not on the Vidal stuff. Who was very frustrated that people called him a Christian, and he said, "I'm not a Christian. This is not what motivates me."
It was Ed Bradley on 60 Minutes.
It was Ed Bradley on 60 Minutes, yeah. And so you have these kind of weird horseshoe things like, some of these people, I don't really understand their politics. And for the scorekeeping, I mean, even when you're looking at that long stretch, how do you classify 9/11? I mean, that's neither left nor right. It's Islamist. Does that have a separate category? I mean, it's 3,000 people in a day that are incinerated in this city and in D.C. and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So it's a weird one. But the thing for me that was always interesting, because it gets back to your book on the SLA, is the acceptance of violence on particular sides, regardless of who does more or not, is that there is a way back into society. If you're somebody who's in Brian Burroughs' book in Days of Rage, the number of those people that went on to teach at Columbia University, at the Teachers College, I mean, the people that were involved in the Nyack robbery, the number of them that went on to be college professors.
The Weather Underground.
The Weather Underground stuff. And it's beyond Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn. So there is a separate category for that type of violence where it's like,
Well, but I don't think that's a separate category. I think that is a violence on the left. I mean, I was shocked.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the separate category being that it's a little more acceptable to have them come back in a society.
There's a rehabilitation lane available to them that there isn't to the Proud
I was
Boys.
shocked in writing my Patty Hearst book. There were 2,000 bombings in the United States in the 1973 or 74.
In 1 year.
In 1 year.
incredible.
I mean,
More than one per day in
most
New York City, right?
Most
Yes,
of them
Puerto Ricans,
were,
Puerto Rican. Honestly,
most of them were in, at night where they intentionally didn't inflict casualties. But who knows? I mean, you set off a bomb, you never know exactly who's going to get hurt. But the amount of violence was shocking to me.
Crazy,
and a lot of it came from the left in the 70s. That really changed once we got into the 80s and 90s.
And so where do you, to Kmele's point, like where do you think we are now, or it was Matt, you said it, that you have these people, the January 6th stuff, which is appalling on every level. The pardons are incredibly, they're horrible. And I said this, I think, on the last episode. The guy who was pardoned and threatened to kill Hakeem Jeffries, he is not related to me. His last name is Moynihan. It's not in my family.
Gentleman doth
but
protest
that
too much.
doesn't surprise me because of so many psychopaths and sociopaths that were there on January 6th. But then we have that evening, as you point out, a couple of ICE facilities where there was like an ambush where a bunch of people got shot and they arrested 10 people. And beyond the Chaz and Chop and things like that, the Charlie Kirk stuff. Why do you think that's happening now? As somebody who's done the SLA book, which is from the left and as incoherent as the Symbionese Liberation Army is, it's distinctly on the left, and then you have the right of McVeigh, and now stuff's kind of getting closer. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people are online 24 hours a day, and that there are worlds online that are making people crazy. And we started this conversation to talk about the Nazis, these people. I mean, there was a lot of talk about Nazis, and I am not an expert in in this online perversity. But, when I did this research about Tim McVeigh, he had to go to incredible trouble to research the right wing, find these newsletters.
Sure.
And, he had to order online the famous novel whose name I'm blanking, the Turner Diaries. That
William Pierce. Yeah.
William Pierce was the pseudonym of the author.
Yeah.
It was hard. You had to be motivated. Now, all you have to do is turn on your phone. I mean, if you are slightly disposed towards paranoid thinking, towards conspiratorial thinking, there are
so much of it,
endless worlds that will accommodate
And
you.
it's not just a library, it's communities that are gathered around this that are egging each other on, which is a little bit different.
Yeah, now you say the word newsletter, it's usually preceded by the word Substack. In the past, it was the Ron Paul survival report. And
Well,
things like that,
and you know, it was a big production to get a hold of those. You had to send in your money, and you had to get it. I mean, it just that limited the number of people who could be exposed to it. Now it's very easy. And I think it also leads to the ideological incoherence that you're talking about. That you know, again, in the McVeigh 80s day, I mean, it was very clear, you know, what was left and what was right. Now, I think there is a world of craziness that it's very hard. It's very much harder to distinguish.
100%. I mean, trying to divine what somebody like Candace Owens thinks about anything is nearly impossible.
Or the guy,
common denominators.
the guy who's
Jews?
accused,
Yeah,
the guy who's accused of killing Charlie Kirk. I mean, you know, whenever these crimes happen, there's this rush to determine, was he left, was he right, and this guy was just, you know, an ideological muddle of craziness.
He did kill Charlie Kirk, though. I mean,
Well,
that's
that is
a
true.
pretty big indication of where
that's
he's...
a good
Knowing who Charlie
indication.
Kirk is already kind of a
Yeah,
strange thing
yeah.
for a normal person.